If I'm going to pick one book that stuck with me, it's one that I read when I was probably about 15 when I read this, is Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez. This left such an impact on me. This book changed my life. It made me want to make films.
Robert Rodriguez was on like an interview tour. He went on Lex Fridman. He went on Rogan. He went on, I think, a few others.
Does he have a thing he's promoting?
I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I'm always rooting for Robert Rodriguez. I'll be honest. Generally speaking, I don't love probably most of his movies. I'm not I can't say I'm a Spy Kids fan.
You're not?
I'm coming back to settle the score for imprisoning me. All I wanted to do was right the wrongs.
I mean, obviously, like El Mariachi and Desperado are cool movies. I think Sin City is really cool, obviously. Sin City made a huge splash at the time that it came out. I remember it was like everybody was rushing to the theater to see that movie. And that was actually, now that I think about it, that was when 300 came out. So it was like the summer or the year of Frank Miller comics adapted faithfully.
Yeah.
People were like, is this movies now?
Yeah, and they're fucking sweet. Yeah. Both those movies are sweet.
They both pretty much launched. I mean, I wouldn't. And neither of them launched Zack Snyder or Robert Rodriguez, but I would say it launched them into box office, huge box office.
Yeah,
it's always funny to think that Dawn of the Dead, the Dawn of the Dead remake, directed by that was his first feature film, Zack Snyder's, written by James Gunn.
That's amazing. I actually love that. I remember seeing it in theaters and being like, I can't believe this is this good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because like it was, even at that time, people were like, remakes, come on, this is like horseshit. But no, I stand by the Dawn of the Dead remake.
And then there was a WrestleMania last month, and so Triple H was out there on the press tours, and so he appeared on. What's that comedian? The Andrew something with the mustache. I don't know his last name. I'll be honest.
I know who you're talking about.
He's for a different demographic than me.
Yeah, all these comedian podcasts I kind of skip.
Yeah.
Who's that like Southern boy who's
Theo Vaughn.
Theo Vaughn, yeah.
There's
all these people are too young for me.
There's like that guy, like Two Bears in a Cave or something. There's a lot of shit. And they all are like super wealthy from podcasts.
Yeah, and like Trump goes on their podcast and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like losing the plot fast. I'm like, Trump, you're welcome to he has a spiritual spot on this podcast because I impersonate him at least once an episode. They're calling them podcasts. I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my ass. Great hats off at her, and we're taking our hats off for him. Don't you know how to knock, Flemwad? We said, what the hell happened to the cocker in Little Mermaid? Obama wouldn't let you have it. He's got a great work ethic. He's going to quit YouTube. He's going to get a girlfriend and then never upload again. So Triple H is an excellent interview. Whether you're into wrestling or you're not into wrestling, the guy is the creative lead at least, and probably more things of WWE at this point. He's been part of the company for decades. Robert Rodriguez is a Hollywood institution, and they both touched upon various things related to failure and things not going so well. Robert Rodriguez especially talked a lot about this. He was talking about how he was saying this to Lex Fridman. He was like, because I wrote Rebel Without a Crew. And by the way, there was a, was it HBO? It might have been Hulu. I don't know. There was some channel, some streaming platform or something where there was a Robert Rodriguez Project Greenlight style show. I have the episode somewhere. I love Project Greenlight. It's about making movies. And there's one that's like Robert Rodriguez is going to like mentor these 6 filmmakers as they endeavor to make their first ever, no budget features or something.
They'll have 14 days, a budget of $7,000, and a +1 that they can bring along on their journey. And to add to the pressure, they will have camera crews following them 24/7.
I remember it's actually kind of a crappy show, and it's like overly dramatized. But I remember a couple of times Rodriguez would step in. There'd be some problem that the filmmaker couldn't sort out. And Rodriguez, in just a very kind of like flow state, kind of chill way, would like resolve the problem.
Yeah.
I remember there was a cinematography professor in our MFA, C.E. Courtney. And I worked with him a couple times on a soundstage. Same thing. Like where I'd be like, I don't quite get it. And he'd be like, just call action and I'll have it solved by the time you call action. Just kind of like these like I guess that's what experience gets you, right? Is the sophisticated, immediate identification of like, oh, that's what's going wrong with that, and the solution is actually kind of simple. So often, I think when we're confused about the cause, like we overcomplicate the solution, right?
Rebel Without a Crew, the series, premieres November 18th on El Rey Network.
So Rodriguez was like, I wrote Rebel Without a Crew, my book about filmmaking, making the first, making El Mariachi. Famously, I don't know, he sold his body to science or whatever, and dumpster dove and used things that were available to him. It's this cool, inspiring story about, kind of like Kevin Smith, basically. And he was on that same kind of path with Kevin Smith of, except much, he was making an action movie. And he's like, because I wrote that, I'll sometimes be asked to speak not just to filmmakers, but also just like to entrepreneurs, just people who want to take a chance and want to try something. And he's like, I remember this woman asked me, what do you do if you've like wasted a shitload of time on something that just didn't work out? And he was like, could you try to rephrase that in a more positive way before I even like attempt to respond to it? And she was like, how do you like learn a lesson the hard way? And he was like, that still sucks.
I say, when you follow your instinct, like if you follow your own instinct to go start a business or go make this movie or that, it wasn't someone saying, go over there and you'll make $1 million. It was your instinct and you fail. Sometimes the only way across the river is to slip on the first 2 rocks. And
he talked in depth about how the analogy, the example he used was Tarantino had asked him to direct on an anthology film called 4 Rooms. People probably have heard of 4 Rooms. And the movie like was kind of doomed to not make money. But while on the set of making that film, aside from the fact that he got to work with his friends and that was really exciting, he basically came up with the ideas for Sin City, because that too was an anthology film. And he was like, we could do an anthology, but what if it was all in the same style and it was all directed by me, but it was just short films. And he basically came up with the idea for Spy Kids, which he went on to make like 5 of those movies because he was...
It's crazy.
Yeah. And those were his 2...
They were successful too.
Yeah, well, make five of them. 5 of them.
When I saw Antonio and his wife, I thought, wow, they look like a really cool international spy couple. What if they were spies? And these 2 little kids, they don't know parents are spies. They have to go save them. Okay, there's 5 of those movies now, right?
So those are Sin City and Spy Kids were his 2 huge commercial successes amongst everything. And he was like, so, he was encouraging people to, when something doesn't work out, like take some serious time and sift through what didn't work and like find what did work and find the gifts and find the opportunities. And he's like, it can't be surface level. It can't just be like, well, at least I learned X. Or he's like, really take some time to be like, what did I get out of it? And he was like, so focus on just building a body of work as a creative. Just keep building a body of work, because you don't know which failures and which opportunities and what will hit and what won't hit and a failure that will lead to a success. And, it's like, so, but I think what he's trying to say is remaining static is going to guarantee failure.
Right.
So just like motion is always kind of a gift.
Just commit to making a body of work like an artist would do. And you don't know what the masterpieces are going to be, or which, someone's going to come and say, oh, that one that bombed, there is some really creative stuff in there, and it's not for you to decide.
He's also talking about he had once asked Steven Spielberg, how do you deal with like negative criticism? There was a period of time where people were going hard on Spielberg, and Spielberg's answer was like, don't blink. Just like, it's like stay in the pocket of the thing, like, don't blink. So yeah, that's Robert Rodriguez's advice to us all who feel like we're spinning our wheels, wasting our time. Don't blink, build a body of work,
right.
Sift through the failure.
I was listening to one of the clips from, I think it was Joe Rogan when he was talking. And he was talking about how he was like Spy Kids inspired a bunch of the technology that went behind Sin City. And like, that's like, of course it did. Like you think about it, of course, because all the green screen stuff and like when people are driving cars, they're just holding up a steering wheel in a studio. And he was like talking about how like, he was talking about like, oh, how would actors do this? And he was just like, oh, I told them like, just think of it like a black box theater. And then it clicked for the actors like, oh, of course, black box theaters. We do this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And
it's acting.
So he's got such a wealth of knowledge and such, you can tell he's so scrappy and
but elegant too,
elegant,
Yeah, you can tell why people like working with him. He's also enthusiastic. Even in the interview, even though he's chill, he's really it felt like he's telling you good news the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so eloquent and it gets his points across very well. We were watching that David Lynch masterclass and how you have to communicate with your actors and things like that. I could totally see working with him would be such a joy because he knows how to communicate his vision completely.
Oh yeah, he was like, be creative, be technical. It's like the story you tell yourself. Like, don't be like, I hope to be technical eventually. Just be like, well, I am technical. There's some kind of mind trick stuff. Like he was talking about how he's a painter too, or he aspires to be. And there was some famous painter, some extremely skilled painter. And instead of like taking lessons from the guy, he just like stood next to him while that guy painted. and then started trying to do his own painting. No. And he said like, it's so fascinating to listen to. Yeah, this, I think, extremely credible, creative mind say the exact same thing that David Lynch said, which was, it's best to think of like the creative spirit in you as something that's kind of independent from you. And like your job is to just be a good conduit, a nice smooth conduit for it and kind of get out of its way. And the reason it doesn't work sometimes is because you're getting in its way and you're fucking with it. And it doesn't like being fucked with. It doesn't like being interfered with, but like, let it come out. And I think there's that sounds kind of fruity, but I think there's some truth to it. Like this idea of like, I'm just going to paint, for a few weeks next to a guy who is one of the world's greatest painters. There's becomes this kind of osmosis thing that happens. And I think that probably this is backed by science in some way, but this idea, in the 70s, they said like, it's physically impossible for a man to run faster than a 4-minute mile. And then like one guy did it and then like 30 guys did it.
Yeah.
There's a weird thing that happens where there's some like human limitation. Speed running, I think you could make the same argument. Yeah. But that we think there's some wall, and as soon as like one person that can model that you can actually get past that, then suddenly the book is rewritten.
Oh yeah, like how many Summoning Soul videos have you watched where it's like, we didn't think we could break the 30-minute mark, and then suddenly like Matt Turk did it, and then it's like everybody.
And then like a few guys did it that month, or sometimes.
Sometimes it's like the next day, like 3 guys do it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, because in a weird way, like we first have to believe that it's possible, and so that's what all this kind of like fruity, like. Just tell yourself you're already technical and you're trying to get the ego out of the way and say, I'm trying to let something out. So that's a little different than Lynch was saying that creative ideas are something you're trying to catch. They're like coming at you and you're trying to get them. He's saying like, there's this creative thing that's inside you you're trying to let out. But in either event, you aren't it.
Yeah, it's strangely egoless for such a like directors. You think of all ego, You think of like, oh, this is a personality. This is somebody who owns it. This is somebody who demands a bunch of stuff. But actually, it's a weirdly egoless activity to bring out this creativity.
It is. Yeah, and I think that's true when you're working with actors. I think it's true when, like, if you and I are trying to figure out some visual problem, right? The two of us are in pursuit of probably something that, like, the two of us can see, but we're working hard to try to capture it. But it's not like I'm trying to make Frankie happy. I'm trying to get what he wants or something. It's like normally there's some kind of like third party thing we're after. I don't know. I like the idea. I think it's cool. Yeah. It's the creative spirit, let it flow. It's not you. It's some other thing that uses you as a conduit. And if it doesn't come through, it's because you're blocking it or think it's you. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. No, I like it a lot.
Well, he paid for it. Yeah, that backfired.
And then as far as Triple H goes, so, I mean, that guy has gotten to witness now. I mean, mostly he's gotten to witness Vince McMahon being wrong. And, Vince McMahon, obviously a disgraced figure, not a good guy. Wrestling's better off without him. However, I think you got to give him his due in as much as like the guy built a lot of wrestling as we know it today. Like you can't just completely ignore that. I was surprised at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony for Triple H. He took a minute to be like, well, this guy's my father-in-law and this guy did bring me into those writers' rooms. And like, he actually took a big risk. He took a big like reputation risk to be like, let me at least give the guy his due in this regard.
Complicated story and a complicated relationship, but in so many ways, I would not be here without him.
Here are some things that I've heard that Vince McMahon got wrong. And again, you gotta understand, like, Vince McMahon was the thing that needed to say yes in order, for anything to happen. He yelled at Austin. This is from Triple H. He was super pissed at Stone Cold Steve Austin for doing his 316 promo.
Talk about your Psalms. Talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass.
Do you remember how many T-shirts there were with Austin 316?
So many.
I mean,
when you go to a country fair, it was like everywhere.
Every fat dude with a black Austin 316. And the reasoning, he was like, I wish you hadn't done that. I wish you had run it by me. Like, you can't be going after people's religion like that on TV. That was really the reasoning. He's like, we can't be doing that. It was funny to think, like, nowadays, like, go crazy. But,
yeah, who cares?
20 years ago, it was like, we don't make fun of Jesus at the beer swilling wrestling show. It makes sense. If a lot of those shows are in the Bible Belt, or a lot of the fandom is in the Bible Belt. And according to Triple H, he was like, he's like, go, they wanted to print some shirts of it. And he's like, go ahead. You'll see how they don't sell. Like, Vince McMahon said that. He's like,
wow.
Print as many of them as you want. I'll show you. In the late 90s, there were probably few things that sold quite as well as Austin 316 t-shirts.
Oh, absolutely. Stone Cold Steve Austin was like a phenomenon. He's on that fucking, the celebrity death match and everything.
Right.
He was everywhere.
A man with a doctorate in destruction, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Pain.
Oh. Likewise, he told The Rock to always smile. Always smile. Keep up, because they want to root for a young kid who's just happy to be there. And Rock was like, I really kind of want to do this other thing. And he eventually, that's a story that Rock has told. He eventually was able to negotiate his way to like one promo where he could break that character. He said, this is according to Chris Jericho. He said, like, that John Cena guy is greener than grass. I see nothing about him that impresses me. Nothing. So I just I'm naming Mount Rushmore here. John Cena.
Yeah, seriously.
The Rock. Was Hulk Hogan a piece of shit too? While we were at, I mean, he is, yes, but
he is, yeah.
But not he did bring in a few bucks.
What's your next desire?
Undertaker told a really funny story where he knew that he was going to get a call to go to WWF in the 90s, and they kept promoting this giant egg that they were going to like hatch, and some wrestler was going to come out of it for Thanksgiving, and he was that was the look. Wrestling was really dumb at one time, and as the story goes from Undertaker, he was so horrified. He was like, I'm going to be in that fucking egg. He said, I had like so much anxiety about it. I was like, they're going to make me hatch out of an egg, and I'm going to be the egg guy.
The egg man.
He said, like, Vince called him and he was like, is this the Undertaker? And he's like, is this the Undertaker? Let me think about that for a second. It's like, it's not the egg. It's not the egg. Yeah, this is the Undertaker. Oh, goddamn. That's good to hear. So it was interesting listening to Triple H talk to these comedians, because in so many ways, I think wrestling is stand-up comedy. Right. It's a lot of things, but I think it's mostly stand-up comedy, where you have to, where the live audience is a big piece of it, and you have to experiment in order to get past the status quo stuff. Like, you have to try something that's likely to fail. Like, it is an iterative process.
You can't see me. You can't see me. You can't see me. What are you playing, peekaboo? You can't see me.
But I think, I don't know, man. Like, I'm sure people out there, you, me, if we think about things that went horribly wrong in our lives, or times where we felt downtrodden, I mean, there's going to be those kind of, I don't know, like senseless suffering, right? That happens in our lives for sure. But I'd be willing to wager most things where you were really hoping for one direction and you got a different direction, you're probably pretty grateful for that different direction.
Right.
Like, things you found a gift in that different direction. Like, for me, like, one of my big things was like, it pretty much led to my wife and therefore my kid eventually, which was I was supposed to go to a different high school that I ended up not getting into. It was some prep school that my sister went to that they thought I should go to. And then I ended up in public school. I don't meet Nina. I don't meet John. I don't, maybe I don't become a filmmaker, right? You do have to, disappointment is something that you got to try to overcome, I think, because there's something there. There's something in it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't be too disappointed. It's every damn time too. You think back, you're like, oh yeah, remember 5 years ago when I was all broken up about that, and like, oh, thank God that happened. That happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I was working as an engineer, and the 2008 crisis happened. I got laid off, and that allowed me to go to make animations, and those animations got me into Emerson, and then Emerson, I meet you. So
yeah,
it's
the failure had to happen. Well, I think it's not. I don't think that it's just because of, I don't know, divine intervention or luck or something like that. I think it's because we will not disrupt ourselves without failure. Failure is like a necessary disruptive ingredient. And it's the only thing that would cause us to go some other path that we would never explore in the first place. Right. And without that disruption, you don't experiment. Otherwise, you just accept the world, reality as you see it, right? You just accept whatever's right in front of you. Because, we're not, I think when it comes to our own lives, we're not that imaginary or imaginative.
Yeah, no, it's true. You get stagnant. You can get in those ruts.
Yeah, well, I think we're just not very good at free association. We're not very good at like, well, what about this? And what about that? And some of it seems scary, and some of it doesn't occur to you at all in the first place. So I think you do have to figure out some way to be like the next time something happens, you're like, ooh, this is really hard, layoff or whatever. Like, yeah. Be like, okay, what's in it? What's in this? How am I going to turn this into something really cool that, like, there's no fucking way I would turn it into if I just kept going on that same path?
Yeah. Just like without Spy Kids, you wouldn't have Sin City,
one that was the old model of the one for me, one for you kind of thing. Or it's like, but I think he really liked those Spy Kids movies because he then did like Shark Boy and Lava Girl too. That was like his kids wrote that.
I think he liked those fucking things.
I think he enjoyed that shit. Well, he was hands on too. Remember, he would do original music by himself. Mm-hmm. He would do some of the VFX. The dude was doing VFX. He always edited his movies, and he said in one of his interviews, he said that he ran into a lot of trouble with that. Where the studios were like, nobody edits their own movie. Like, we're not allowing you to do that. There's a few filmmakers that come to mind, but Kevin Smith and him leap to mind as some of the few Hollywood auteurs that get to edit their own stuff, it seems. I could never imagine not editing my own stuff.
No.
And he said the exact same thing, I think. He was like, I think the reason that a lot of films waste money, waste time, which then causes conflict and causes tension and turmoil because it's mismanaged, is because they're not shooting to edit. If they shot to edit and they knew what they were editing, then it'd be a much more efficient set. And because he was talking about how he's worked with like Mickey Rourke and Bruce Willis, like famously difficult actors to work with. And he's like, I got no problems. And I think it's because he makes sure that it's efficient, so he's not wasting anybody's time. And I think he's got that really awesome attitude. He's got a winning personality for sure, like a kind of infectious positivity. What are you gonna do? Show up to Robert Rodriguez and act like a dickhead? Like,
no,
yeah, you can't.
He's too nice. He definitely communicates well. You don't want to piss this guy off. He's too chill. I loved his episode on Mandalorian. I even Book of Boba Fett obviously has its good moments. Even when he's in that kind of sphere, I think he does well. So
that's why I would say anybody who definitely check out his book. Anybody who just loves art, creativity, making stuff, getting up in the morning and playing. That's his wheelhouse. He's a really inspirational guy.
Jalen, you should record this. Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.